Hey everyone, it's Year Peacekeeper coming at you with the next video in our How to Play series on the US cruiser line. This is the Tier 9 Baltimore class cruiser. The Baltimore class cruiser was the largest class of heavy cruisers built by the US Navy. There were 14 of them built between 1940 and 1944. The ships in the class are Baltimore, Boston, Canberra, Quincy, Pittsburgh, St. Paul, Columbus, Helena, Bremerton, Fall River, Macon, Toledo, Los Angeles, and Chicago. The Baltimore class borrowed heavily on the preceding Wichita class of cruisers, which was a heavy cruiser built on a modified Brooklyn class hull, the Brooklyns of course being a light cruiser. It also borrowed heavily on the Cleveland class light cruisers in its overall appearance, and more or less, if you didn't know, the differences between the two could be easily confused. The design carried the same number of guns as the preceding Wichita and New Orleans class cruisers, that being 9 8-inch guns, but this is the first non-treaty U.S. cruiser to be built, and their displacement greatly outweighed both the Wichita and New Orleans, with 17,000 long tons being the total displacement of the Baltimores. This is 7,000 long tons more than either the Wichita or New Orleans. Most of this displacement came in the form of added armor protection and much stronger engines. And of course, to go with that, the Baltimores were one of the best protected cruisers in the U.S. cruiser fleet. In terms of their service history, the Baltimore class cruisers served through the Korean War, after which most of them were put into the reserve fleet and scrapped. 4 of the ships were converted into guided missile cruisers of the Albany and Boston class, and those ships served in the 1970s and 1980s, with the last being formally removed from the Naval Registry in the early 1990s. Unfortunately, none of these ships were preserved in any form, so we can't see any of the Baltimores today. In terms of notable ships, the USS Pittsburgh was renamed to the USS Canberra in honor of the loss of the Australian County-class cruiser HMS Canberra during the Battle of Savo Island. She is the only U.S. warship to ever be named after a foreign warship or capital city. That's not to be confused with the USS Pittsburgh, which is also a Baltimore-class cruiser, which is the former USS Albany. It gets confusing. If you want more information, go check out the Wikipedia page. It really is confusing. The name ship of the class, USS Baltimore, actually was by far the most notable of all of these ships, probably because she was one of the few that actually served in any combat in World War II. She received 9 battle stars for her service in World War II due to her involvement in providing fire support for the landings in Macon, Kwajalein, Truk, Eniwetok, the Marianas, Palo Yap, Hollandia, as well as participating in airstrikes against the Marcus Islands, Wake Island, and Saipan. Baltimore also participated in the Battle of the Philippine Sea, which would go on to be called the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot due to the number of Japanese aircraft that were shot down during the battle. In terms of her in-game play style, the Baltimore has had a love-hate relationship with many players in the game, owing to her position between the former absolutely horrible New Orleans and what many consider to be one of the most ridiculously powerful heavy cruisers in the game, the Des Moines. And we'll talk about my opinions on Des Moines here coming soon, so stay with us for more on that next week. Prior to her reload speed buff, she had a slow but methodical gameplay style similar to New Orleans and Pensacola that made her extremely difficult to play, but I didn't find the grind through Baltimore to be nearly as bad as the pre-buff New Orleans. Post-reload buff, many people have gone on to label this ship as the Mini Des Moines due to her fast-firing 8-inch guns with, of course, the extremely capable, super heavy 8-inch armor-piercing round with the gun upgrade that you get to the Mark 15 guns. She is an extremely maneuverable ship with a good enough bow armor to bow tank 15-inch guns, and she also seems to see Tier 7 fights on a reasonably regular basis, where she has a distinct and massive advantage over her lower tier peers with regards to the gunnery aspects. Her anti-aircraft and stealth is also extremely high given to how lethal her gunnery is. This by far makes her one of the most fun ships to play, and there's a number of different ways that you can set this ship up. Being a tier 9, you have all of the upgrade slots, which just allows you a wide variety of choices to make in terms of how you play her. In terms of her stats, she has a 42,700 hit points, up to 6 inches of belt armor, and a TDS value of 4%. Her main battery consists of 9 8-inch 55 caliber Mark 15 guns in the upgrade. Well, I guess technically they're both Mark 15s. The upgrade actually changes you over to the same shells that the Des Moines fires, which are the 8-inch super heavy shells. These give you a little bit added penetration at the longer ranges, but it comes at the expense of shell arcs. Thankfully, if you play this ship well and in islands, you can really maximize how much damage you do with that AP, and you can minimize the disadvantages of having more lofty shell arcs. You do have a 15.8 kilometer main battery firing range, which in terms of heavy cruisers is really quite short if you don't take the range module. That said, this ship's stealth allows it to close into distances in which that is not a disadvantage. And taking the range module is certainly an option that you can consider if that's the style of play that you like. I personally don't care for the longer ranges on the US cruisers, and maybe that's a reason why I don't like the Des Moines nearly as much as I like the Baltimore. In terms of secondary, she does have 12 of the 5-inch 38 Mark 32 guns. These are the dual-purpose gun mounts seen here. These have been pretty much the standard on all of the U.S. cruisers post St. Louis class for the cruiser line, which is not in this game, unfortunately. I'm not talking about the Tier 3 St. Louis. I'm talking about the upgraded Brooklyn class of cruisers known as the St. Louis class. And it was on the Wichita before this, and of course Baltimore being the first heavy cruiser to accomplish that as a full line of ships. The Wichita was kind of a one-off. And their range and pure secondaries are 5.3 kilometers. That's going to be without advanced firing training on this captain. This captain only has 11 points, so only have concealment expert on this captain for 4-point skills. Main battery firing range 15.8 kilometers, and the reload with the reload module is 8.8 seconds, which is really quite quick given how much punch those guns have. In terms of anti-aircraft, she does have a sizable anti-aircraft suite. This is the U.S. national flavor, of course. That is not nearly as good of a national flavor as Wargaming would like it sound to be, but they come in at 23 single 20mm Oerlikons, 12 by 4, so 48 total 40mm Bofors. That's 12 quad mounts, and they are littered throughout the ship. And, of course, those 12 5-inch 38 caliber Mark 32 guns in the dual-purpose mounts. Your anti-aircraft build starts at 5 kilometers, again, without advanced firing training, without the AA range module. If you're really looking to troll aircraft, which, you know, aircraft carriers are finally starting to make a comeback, the anti-aircraft capabilities of this ship are insane, and if you build the captain for anti-aircraft duties, you will shred aircraft. And it will do it in a way that makes most carrier captains cry. So 5 kilometers for the 5-inch guns, 3.5 for the Bofors, and 2 for the 20mm Oerlikons, which all of that can be pushed out, of course, with advanced firing training to much further distances. Her maximum speed is 32.5 knots. Her turning radius is 730 meters, which is really quite tight, and a rudder shift time of 4.7 seconds, and that is going to be with the final upgrade, the steering gears upgrade. Her concealment is 10.8 kilometers. With just concealment expert, you can lop off another 1.08, so almost 1.1 kilometers off of that by dumping the steering gears mod 3 for concealment systems. This allows you to get within radar range when you get detected. So if you're detected, you can pop radar and pretty much guaranteed to spot whatever is spotting you. Her detection range by air is 8 kilometers. Speaking of upgrades, let's talk about those upgrades. In the first slot, I have Main Armaments Mod 1 because I'm not running preventative maintenance on this captain, so taking Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1 does not help out the ship any because I am likely to see my main guns taken out, and I don't want that to happen, so running Main Armaments Mod 1 in the first slot. In the second slot, there's only two options here that I really consider viable. I am running Aiming Systems Mod 1 because this ship, I have it set up to play in kind of a more individual role where I'm focusing on gunning down enemy cruisers as opposed to the anti-aircraft duty. But if you are interested in running the anti-aircraft version of this ship, AA Guns Mod 2 will get you an extra 20% to the range on your AA guns. In the third slot, there's a number of different modifications here that are viable. Of them, it depends on your playstyle. Me personally, I've chosen Main Battery Mod 3, which is going to reduce the reload time, but it's also going to increase how long it takes for my turrets to turn. So we're slowing down the turret traverse, but we're getting a much faster reload. This build is really good at taking out enemy ships. It is not nearly as good as duking it out in an all-out brawl, but the turret traverse time is already plenty low, so it's really not too big of an issue to lose some turret traverse speed. Plus, you're making it up for it in the captain skills in that second point slot, like we talked about in the captain skills video. The other option here that might be viable is if you're more interested in a more longer range engagement, Gunfire Control Systems Mod 2 will give you 16% to your main battery firing range, which allows you to sit back just a touch further than Main Battery Mod 3 would. And of course, if you are again going for the anti-aircraft build on the Baltimore, AA Guns Mod 3 is going to add 25% to the DPS of all of your AA gun mounts, and there really is no reason not to take this skill if you are going for that build. The last upgrade in this slot is pretty much useless, and that's going to be the secondary battery upgrades. Really not useful on US cruisers because there's not a whole lot of secondaries on it. I mean, I guess there technically is. You can fire up to 8 guns with your secondaries per broadside, but man, you just don't have the range to really put that to good use. In the fourth slot, Propulsion Systems Mod 1 or Steering Gears Mod 1, it's your choice on which you lose more. I personally find losing an engine to be more of a detriment than losing steering, so I run Propulsion Systems Mod 1. Damage Control Systems Mod 1 is basically useless on a cruiser. And 5% torpedo damage reduction, woo! So that's the reason why I don't run it. In this fifth slot, I run Propulsion Mod 2, and if I really wanted to be cheeky, I could run Steering Gears Mod 2, which would give you like a 3.8 second rudder shift time, which is destroyer levels of maneuverability. But personally, I don't see that as being terribly necessary. If you're interested in running the ship in the full concealment build, I highly recommend taking Steering Gears Mod 2 over Propulsion Mod 2. But because I am not using the full concealment build on the Baltimore, I am running Propulsion Systems Mod 2 for the times that I'm sitting behind an island and I need to speed up or slow down, get going faster or slow down in that 6 to -6 knot range. Steering Gears Mod 2 will of course cut your rudder shift time down by 20 seconds. In this last slot, there are two options here that I consider to be very viable. Concealment Systems Mod 1 for the 10% reduction in your detection range, as well as the 5% increase in the dispersion of shells fired at you. It's like having the camo on for free. I don't know why that change got made. Concealment Systems Mod 1 was already a pretty powerful module, but it is what it is. In this slot, though, I run Steering Gears Mod 3, which reduces the rudder shift time by 40% and reduces the time it takes to repair them by 80%. So you can see that even if I do lose my rudders, they are going to get repaired plenty quick. And I personally find this to be a little bit more useful than running the full concealment build. I think the rudder shift time is a little too long for my taste for the in-close engagements that I get into with Baltimore. And you'll see more of this in the battle video, which we will go ahead and dive right on into. So this fight is actually going to be a Tier 10 fight, and you can see here we have a number of Tier 10 cruisers, including 2 Minotaurs on their team. Oh my goodness, this could not be any worse. My counterpart on the other team is a Rune, and, well, that's a tough ship to beat as well. They also have a tier 10 battleship, but there is an aircraft carrier as well, and so this is going to make for an interesting and fun battle. The map is Two Brothers. One of my... It's really not one of my favorite maps. It's not a terrible map by any stretch of the imagination, but the long open areas on A and D caps really make for a very boring gameplay style that I don't particularly care for, and one that is really not an advantage in this ship. In fact, I would much prefer to be fighting on a map like Neighbors or Trident, where the islands provide you with a lot of ambush. And right off the bat, somebody has RDF in the game. And as I kind of predicted when the skill was first being discussed, by all the community contributors, oh man, the end of the world, RDF. Like, no, it's really not that common. Just not seeing it. And also, I'm not really finding it to be all that useful. Anyway, we're going to go over towards A. Generally speaking, though, I prefer to go to D. It's just that I'm on this side of the map, so we're going to go over here. One of the keys to fighting at A, though, is going to be to keep as much cover between you as you can and the enemy, which is going to be at A. Now, thankfully, our carrier, our Taiho, is launching aircraft at A, and so we will get to see whatever is in A at an early... at an earlier time. We will get to see all those aircraft, all the ships that go into A. That's going to kind of help us pre-plan our radar usage as well as our what ships we are going to engage. And there's RDF popping up again. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop up towards this island here. It's off to our right where the RDF island, the RDF icon is at. But before we do that, we're going to do some wigging and wagging here. Okay, so now we're making our turn, and I've noticed that our entire team is lemming training towards D. This is not a viable tactic on this map. Anybody who tells you that this is a viable tactic is insane. The only way the lemming train works on this map is if you get lucky and can lemming train up the middle, or you are literally outrunning the other team on the other side. Otherwise, it just ends up being a giant battle of frustration. So we are parked kind of broadside here, and this is really not what I recommend that people do. But because we aren't detected yet, it's safe to go ahead and do this, and we are finally slowing down well enough. Now, you'll notice on my mini-map that I do have my detection range by air enabled. About halfway between the detection range by air and by sea is the detection range, is the radar range, and that really helps you out when you decide to go pop radar like we just did. And look what popped up! Why, hello there, Yagumo! How are you today? Radar is an extremely powerful tool. You can see there I shot off the AP that I had loaded. Definitely not the best thing to do, but it's all I really had. It seems that none of their battleships are over here really causing a problem at the moment. There's a Yamato over there, but he's not really coming into the picture to play, at least not at this point in time. So there is smoke up here. I'm going to attempt to go utilize it while we deal with this Chapayev over there. We're at least going to use the smoke to angle ourselves away. And there is Chapayev smoke and torpedoes. And we managed to start the Chapayev on fire, actually. It did about 4,600 damage. I can read a map. We are going to double back, though, because we have less units on this side. Our goal here is going to be to go ahead and delay as much as we can. Friendly Mozka here, who is doing what Mozkas do best, which is starting all the things on fire. I can tell already that I'm under fire by at least one Minotaur, and they are the most annoying ship outside of an Atlanta. That AP is continuous, and it really does hurt a lot. And so we pop off around just thinking, well, maybe we can get this Yamato on fire or something. And, ooh. Nope, island. So we are definitely being spotted by that Yagumo there. This Yamato is still kind of chilling, and we're behind an island here. So let's go ahead and we're going to take advantage of this island. And this delaying action has already allowed our destroyers over at B, or sorry, A, to go ahead. A? No, D. The other... There's only 4 of them. Allowed our destroyers over at D to already start to push into their cap at C. And we are, you know, pelting the Yamato with HE, doing really rather poor damage. 924 damage. Really not a lot to write home there. In fact, there's no damage on that one, but we managed to get a fire started, which is going to help bolster our damage a little bit, and maybe we can get additional ones started. There's another 1800. And as he goes broadside here, in an ideal world, we should be switching to AP, but we have a rune here. Oh, start another fire on that Yamato. That sucks for him. Enjoy those 2 fires. And I'm not really worried about getting far enough forward. Oh, there's a Des Moines. Now, I just can't help myself here because a Des Moines that's broadside, this is just like the ideal target for you to shoot at as a U.S. cruiser. You have this amazing armor piercing. You would be a fool to use it. Look at that. 5,000 damage. This Des Moines is going to shoot at me. I'm not detected now. He knows where I'm at. We've managed to take out at least disable a gun. He's switched to being angled in. I really need to angle because if he starts shooting AP at me, well, now I'm detected. Yep, he's shooting AP, and I noticed this, so my goal here is to try and not be as open, because look at how quickly he lops off damage. I switched to HE. We're waiting for the radar to go away. This Des Moines has gotten ADD and is largely ignoring me and is now shooting at the Zhao. So now's my opportunity to push the advantage here. We are going to go ahead and hover around this island for just a little bit more. Shoot at this Des Moines. Take as much off as we can with HE. And then switch to the armor piercing. Maybe we can get ourselves some kills. So we are lopping off 3 grand at a time with a reload of 8.8 seconds. And there he just took off 5k in 1 salvo. We really need to angle ourselves a little bit better. Well, now I'm not detected. Now I'm detected again. Well, it's kind of boring to sit here and do this, but, you know, we're about to take out this Des Moines, and as soon as we do, really the only threat that's over there is going to be that Yamato, which... he's dead. So that means this is an almost entirely a cruiser fight. This Des Moines is going to die. Please soon. Yes. Okay, so he's dead. And that means it's time to go ruin somebody's day. That was a really bad pun, I'm sorry. This Moskva ends up taking a torpedo, but we are going to get out of there. Oh, they faded anyway. We're going to get out of there before they cause any problems. But look what's in front of us. It's Mr. Soft and Squishy. This rune is going broadside. You're a fool to ignore it. So go ahead and shoot at him. And whop! So we got a Citadel hit there, but we took off a good 7k off of him, and now the carrier is going after him. So what about a Minotaur? Broadside Minotaur. How about 22,000 damage? And buddy, you're not going to be able to angle at all to get away from this fight. There he goes down. 2 salvos we took in a Minotaur out. Just poof. 2 full salvos. Oh, what's this? Another Minotaur. Well, Minotaur's AP is those favorable bounce angles are really, really painful. As you can see, he's doing some pretty decent damage, but so long as we stay angled to him, it won't be too much of a problem. We have radar up. We don't want to blow it quite yet. We want to go ahead and give him every opportunity to pop his smoke, because that's his strength, is to sit and smoke, but there's nothing out there that can really spot me. And look what he's doing. He's opening up. US has the same favorable bounce angles that the Royal Navy has, and if you can land those shells in there when he's, you know, presenting that favor... Oh, he disappeared. We're still spotted. That means there's a destroyer there, but guess what I've got? Radar. And so now we are going to go ahead and push our advantage. And we are now being taken advantage of. They are trying their dangdest to get me dead. There is a destroyer firing at me, and this Minotaur is just panic mode. Just straight up panic mode. There's his torpedoes. He totally boffed that one. And we are now going to go ahead and press. Got to burn that repair right away, though, on that. Continuing to use our AP because we're lopping off 3k a salvo, and we're presenting as little of a profile as we can. We know where he's at. We shoot anyway. We don't get the kill, but it's enough for us to win. And so you can see the situational advantages there. We got Dreadnought, 131,490 damage, 7 Citadel hits. That was 2 salvos on that poor Minotaur. 1,986 base XP. Didn't get to play with any aircraft this game, but you can see how the AP is so effective at killing cruisers. And we really did quite well in this match. And I really like what they've done with Baltimore. It was always a fun ship to me. I enjoyed the challenge of it. Now I really enjoy it because it's a lot of fun. In fact, I almost prefer it to the Des Moines. Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.